started. Okay, now I still have 6 o'clock, so we'll call our meeting to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. And welcome everyone. The roll has been taken?
Yes.
Okay. First up, we have an addition to the amendment, or to the agenda. Under agreements, we'll add number 4. So if we entertain a motion for accepting the agenda as amended.
Support.
Motion supported. Are there any comments or questions? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It is carried. Next, we'll entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes of the March 26, 2019 regular meeting. Your pleasure.
So moved.
Your motion. And we have support. Okay, any comments or questions, corrections on the minutes? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion is carried. And communications, we have a receipt of communication from the Arbor Day Foundation announcing that the City of Elma has earned recognition as a 2018 Tree City USA.
Support.
Motion support, any comments or questions? It is noted that this is our 33rd year receiving this award. I'm not sure if that's consecutive or not. Is it? Okay. So 33 consecutive years, that's pretty good. Okay, we have a motion support, any more comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We have received the communication. Moving down to hearings. We need to set a time and date for the purpose of reviewing the proposed 2020 annual city budget. Notation says that the dates start on April 23rd and continue the following Tuesdays, finalizing on Tuesday, May 21st, 2019 at 5:30. So those are the review dates on Tuesdays. Your pleasure. Nobody wants to come to the hearing. I can't understand your lack of enthusiasm.
With reluctance.
Okay, we have a motion. Okay, we have a motion support. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We have some dates set. Move to number 2, which is to set a public hearing for May 14th, 2019 at 6 p.m. to review the proposed 2020 Elma City budget and related property tax millage rates. Your pleasure.
Support.
I believe we had a motion to support it,
Yes,
so
sorry, my voice.
are there any comments or questions?
Yeah.
We've got,
Wait. Are those dates right? We are going to review the proposal on the 14th, and yet the discussions continue through
we're gonna have
the
a
20th.
hearing on the 14th.
That's for the millage rates.
That's for the
Oh,
village.
all right, okay, all right, thank you.
We're not adapting the budget yet.
All right, I misread that word.
But it's very intertwined, you're right.
Good try, Rod. Good try.
Any more comments or questions? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion is carried. Moving to E, request for purchase. We have consideration of the request to purchase in the amount of $75,850.50 to Alta Equipment Company for asphalt recycler for the state of Michigan contract, which I believe is called My Deal. Is that the contract name?
That's the
Okay. And the notation says that this will replace a 20-year-old, or at least 20-year-old Ashton asphalt recycler, which will be sold. And the purchase is a budgeted item, so I don't, it doesn't say if it's below or above budget, but it's below.
Well, yeah, they were.
So it's within budget. Okay, so roughly almost $10,000 under budget.
Support.
Okay, we have motion and support. Any comments or questions?
Is that what you use to patch the potholes, recycle?
That's a little.
Part of what
Well,
we,
heater
not
thing.
all of it, sometimes full patch.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried.
Can you jump in real quick right there?
Oh, of course you may.
And if you wanna see really good patchwork on the road, we've driven out Wright Avenue lately, around Belleville. That was good.
That
That was
was, that
nice.
is
That was
very
nice.
smooth.
That's so smooth, it was scary, so that was good. Appreciate that.
So they have set the bar. We'll teach them to do a good job. No, give our compliments to the staff who did that, because that is an excellent thing. I keep forgetting about it when I drive over it, but you sure do notice it. Okay, we'll move down to G, resolutions. First up is consideration of a resolution proclaiming April 26, 2019 as Arbor Day in the city of Elma.
Move approval.
Motion support, any comments or questions? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion is carried. Number 2 is consideration of a resolution approving the outdoor cafe permit authorization process. And this is to move it from our purview onto city staff, so the approval will be done at the staff level rather than waiting and coming to the commission, so.
Move approval.
Support.
Motion support, any comments or questions?
Yay.
So noted. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, hopefully we made it easier for people to do business in the city of Alma. Moving down to H, ordinances, we have consideration of adopting ordinance number 809 to amend the zoning map of the city of Alma as it appears in sections 32-32 of the ordinances of the city of Alma. The ordinance is to rezone the property at 313 North State Street from B1 Central Business District to BMR Business Multifamily Zoning District, subject to the conditions set forth in the conditional rezoning agreement.
Support.
We have motion support. We have, any kind of presentation from staff, or is this covered enough?
This is the one unit apartment that'll go along with the other 8 at 313 North State Street. It's a ground floor and the annex part of the building. So, and it's BMR, it fits the best for, it is a business area. Technically, it works underneath the multi-family because we have multiple units that are there. According to our conditional rezoning ordinance, we have to be significantly moving with projects within 18 months, so these things can't sit. Obviously, the project has to move forward. If things don't move forward, then it reverts to the B1 zoning district, so.
Just a review, that's the conditions limit to one apartment on the first floor.
Yes, it is, it's the one, yes. Yep.
Only the one.
Yep.
Okay, any comments or questions? I believe we had a motion and support. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Motion is carried. Moving to 2, consideration of adopting ordinance number 810 to amend the zoning map of the city of Alma as it appears in section 32-32 of the ordinances of the city of Alma. This ordinance is to rezone the property subject to 534 North State from R1 single-family residential to R3 multi-family zoning district, subject to the conditions set forth in the conditional rezoning agreement. So, your pleasure. Motion.
Support.
And motion supported. Comments, questions, or staff? You
Yep,
guys?
same kind of process. This is the Alma First Baptist Church that's on the corner of Hastings and North State. The conditional sets out for the size of the apartment, which is consistent with the ones that we have for the downtown. Talks about the adjacent alley parking, the signage, the lighting, all that must be, it's part of the conditions to revamp this into a multifamily residential area. Again, same kind of thing from our ordinance, it's 18 months to get the project significantly underway. If that would fail to happen, it reverts to its R1 single-family zoning district. So this gives them an opportunity to pursue this project.
Anyone have comments or questions from staff? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion is carried. Moving to agreements. First up, we have consideration of a resolution authorizing the execution of a conditional rezoning agreement between the city of Alma and Gemini Capital Management, 9 LLC, which is the property owner, which conditionally rezones the property located at 313 North State from B1 Central Business District to BMR Business Multifamily Zoning District.
Move approval.
Support.
Got a motion and support. Yeah, this is the project, one of the projects, the first project we just talked about. Any additional comments or questions? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. And And the motion is carried. So number 2 is consideration of a resolution authorizing the execution of a conditional rezoning agreement between the city of Alma and the Alma First Baptist Church, who is the property owner, which conditionally rezones the property located at 534 North State Street from R1 Single Family Residential District to R3 Multifamily Zoning District. Your pleasure.
Motion.
Support?
Motion is support. Obviously, this is the church we just talked about. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and that motion is carried. Number 3 is consideration of a resolution ratifying the execution of a unilateral Metro Act permit to Crystal Automation Systems Incorporated, for doing business as Casair Incorporated. So, your pleasure on this motion? Pleasure to make a motion yet? Want me to read that? Okay, so the note from the staff indicates that Casair Incorporated is asking for the city to ratify the unilateral Metro Act permit for previous access to the public rights-of-way within the city of Alma for the purpose of installing fiber ductwork, and hand holes. This work was done in the years 2014 and 15. Casair had failed to obtain the unilateral Metro Act permit, so now in order to be compliant with the Michigan Public Act 48, Casair has completed the required application, submitted the required fee of $500.
So this is giving permission and pass.
Retroactive, apparently, yes.
It's already done.
Yeah.
So what if we say no?
Then we all take a shovel, we take up the cable.
Make a motion.
And apparently there was no late fee with this. Okay, we had a motion and support. Are there any other comments or questions? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and that motion is carried. Moving down to number 4, which was the added item to the agenda on your paper that was distributed at the meeting here. Consideration of a resolution authorizing the execution of a professional accounting services agreement between the City of Alma and ProNexus for Phase 1 to perform various accounting and finance duties as interim CFO/accounting consultant to assist the City of Alma Finance Department. It is anticipated that this phase will require 120 to 160 hours at an average hourly rate not to exceed $120 per hour. Your pleasure.
Support.
Have motion and support. Any comments or questions? I'd like to remind everybody, this is a recommendation that we came to. The county has used this firm, and we recommended, and in fact, are affiliated with our accountants. And, what am I missing? We had, our subcommittee came back with this recommendation at an earlier meeting, so this is on track to what we planned on doing and talked about in the past, so.
And
Any
what we
additional
looked at
comments or
was-
questions? Go ahead, man.
What we looked at too with the phase, as far as phasing it, when I went back to talk with them, was about, in order for us to control the process, is that we put it into phases. Phase 1 is really that discovery phase, that assessing phase, that looking to where we're at. It's really hard to say where you go in phase 2 until you've had the time to look. But phase 1 allows us, and actually they had said 120 hours initially, and I asked for 160, knowing full well, if we're done early, we can still move to phase 2, and that money's still there. But it would not go beyond this without me having to come back to you again. And so I think that lets us control, it's not an open-ended thing. Again, I think it's essential to where we need to go.
So I guess I haven't read this complete document that got handed out here. We read the overview, but
It's basically this is the same document as it was before,
Okay.
other than we just now put this into a phase.
because our resolution indicates phase 1,
Yeah.
does that prohibit you from moving to phase 2 if you do get done early? If we've stated it's phase 1 in here?
I would think if we got there, I would come back to you no matter what on the phase 2. I would come back to you.
Well, you talked about having the flexibility, are we going
Well,
to?
as far as the money, I'm just thinking, and they're only gonna charge us what they've used, and so it won't be that we would be being charged more than, if it takes 120 hours, we're not gonna get another bill for more.
I think what Greg's saying, suppose you get done, we have another 2 weeks before the meeting. You don't want to lag.
Yeah, you don't want to send them home for 2 weeks and then ask them to come back. That's not going to be very
No,
effective.
that's not what that didn't think, because that wasn't the intent. The intent was to be able to control the process, but if you are more open to moving through that phase and approving something more, I just wanna make sure we got an hour.
I forget. You made the
trust
motion,
that you-
right?
yeah, yes. If we can just say
Do we have
that,
to restate
and you're
it?
just, yes, restate it to add that, under the discretion of the city manager, with, I would
Up to 160
expect.
hours of service, something like that.
Right, but then to be able to move, but then
To the next phase.
move into phase two, I mean, I would expect and am certain that you would let us know if it was in, like the day after the meeting and we aren't getting together for 2 weeks, but I think that we can trust that you can make that decision.
And I wouldn't move without speaking to the committee. I spoke to you guys all along, and that we've had to make sure that
Right,
we're
which is
we're
why
all
I'm
in agreement
confident that
where
you
we
will
go.
keep us informed, but I think that, as Greg
Thank
stated,
you.
that
I
we should
appreciate that.
trust that you can manage to say, okay, we're moving into phase two without having to specifically come. So are we just, Sheila? Do I just need to-
Did you get all of that?
So do I just need to add?
You wanna read that back,
On
please?
discretion of the city manager, we can move into, we approve moving into phase two?
Within the confines of this 160 hours.
What you would say,
That's what, guys,
No.
if,
That's why I'm-
if we, if it's within the confines of the 160 hours, is that gonna run into, we're gonna run into trouble if you move into phase two, you get to 160, you're still in phase two,
Right.
you gotta come back anyway.
the idea would be, is not to exceed 160. If he gets to phase one, he's done 100 hours, he starts at phase two, this is gonna cost me more. There would be time there for him to come back and say, increase from 162.
Okay.
Because
So
we
my-
still have the gap.
Well, and my understanding
that's how I
is they're
read
gonna
it.
let you know
As long as you
at
understand
phase
that
one,
when
what
we're
phase
doing
two is
it.
going to
Yeah.
entail, so you would know if it's going to exceed. And they're gonna inform, after the completion of phase one, they're gonna inform that of what they anticipate phase two to be, so we would know at that point.
All I'm saying is, you're coming back, you're
We'll
coming
make it
back
legal.
if you get past, if you get to 160.
And probably well before this.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, there will be, and in this, there is a weekly reporting thing on their part that I will talk to. Part of the, you have to say the $120, that's the max, but of course they say it most likely will be $120 an hour, but. that's-
$119.50.
Yeah, so you leave it at that.
$19.99.
The other part of the process you do get is not just the person who's here or what's needed, it is the expertise of everybody else involved. That they will be involved every step of the way also in making those phone calls. Of the two partners actually that are involved in the discussions that we've had so far. So service, we got.
So Tony, did we make it legal,
I
and
think
Sheila,
you
do you
did.
know what we?
Okay, good. So you're coming back.
The brains of the.
Come back at
Sheila
160.
knows.
160.
Okay.
Whether you're phase one or
Right.
phase two, you have
I got you. Come back
discretion
at
to go to
160.
phase two, as long as you don't exceed.
Right.
So are you
The
comfortable?
committee feels this will solve our problem.
This is the first step down the road to solving our problems. It's building a new process and rebuilding the process we've got, so. It's,
Getting us into
yeah, the
best
first
practices.
phase is to analyze what we've got, and then, build upon that. Whatever we've got, and then put things back in order, make sure we're following all the best practices, get policies, procedures in place. Trying to think of all the little things in the agreement there.
And that's why they really like the phase portion, that they can say, look, you understand, actually starting to implement things, you're gonna, but the key difference being in here and what we've heard from some other folks is that they come here right away. It's not, they're not a consultant just overlooking from the top down. They'll be right involved working with Cynthia, working with the staff to get things done and to make sure that we are on that.
They're not gonna come and study it for 4 weeks,
No.
and then come back with a report and say you need to implement
You
this.
need to do this.
They're gonna be
They'll be
on the job saying, let's do this, here, staff, you do it this way. Start doing it this way right now, because this is the best practice, this is the way everybody should do it. And they'll bring their expertise with computer systems and everything else into play immediately. They're not gonna wait for a report to be written for it
No.
to come back to us and say, oh yeah, go ahead and do that.
But you did state we're getting weekly updates from,
Yes,
Yes.
and we'll all be getting copies of that?
yes,
Thank you.
And they will be public as well.
yes.
Okay. Do you believe we had a motion to support? Any additional comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion is carried, thank you. Moving down to reports now. City commissioners may receive the following reports by one resolution, or any commissioner may remove any item within the section for individual discussion and votes. We have 3 reports this week, Elma Police Department, the code enforcement, and building permits, all for March of 2018. Any pleasure?
Move to receive?
There's one. I have a motion support. Does anybody care to pull any of the items? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. You have received reports. New appointments. Consideration of a resolution appointing Andy Schlafly to the Elma Downtown Development Authority.
Support.
Motion support. Comments or questions? Andy's not here to say no, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, he's appointed, and thank you to Andy. Next up is consideration of a resolution appointing David Ringel as the City of Elma Public Services Director.
Move approval.
Support.
Motion support, okay. Everyone want to throw darts, or? Okay, now we know why that new pothole and.
Done.
Right, everything was done so well.
I just like to, David and I go back a long ways. I was David's dare instructor way back in the day. So now when I always get those, you know.
Wow.
Yeah,
You know, when people come in and say, "Oh, do you remember me from Dare?" when they're like being arrested next door, and I, "Oh, obviously you didn't listen." So it's nice to see that someone.
A positive
the
influence.
positive influence. Plus, I was his football coach way back in the day. David tells me he did much better at the Dare than he did at the football. From there, I'm excited. In the past year, a little over a year, I've really gotten a really good opportunity to get to know David, and there is nobody more committed to this place and to this organization, to the city, of what he wants to see done. He's got some really good ideas. I think we've made a lot of changes in the last year, and again, we thank Alan very much, and I don't want everybody to look at anything other than we're still moving forward. This is the next way to move forward. There's nobody that knows the infrastructure of the city better than David Ring. I can tell you that right now. And so I'm really excited to see us take some of those next steps and start the planning process that I think will do this. So he's been with us quite a while, a long time actually. And it's just the right step and the next step, and I'm very confident that we're going to be successful. So, David, very happy.
Thank you, Dave, for always answering my questions.
Sure, we've applauded. Does anybody else want to comment or shoot questions?
No, I don't know, we started clapping, but Dave has always answered my questions when I email him. And just recently, after Hayes Street was approved, I had a coworker, and Dave right away answered, so he's always helping the citizens of Elma, so thank you, Dave. Appreciate that.
Important piece of the job.
Yeah.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
And he did accept, right? We're-
Well, I gotta go.
You'd like to do that, right, Dave?
Yeah, so.
Conditional approval.
He hasn't run away up to this point, so I can, hopefully he'll stick around. So with that, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. Congratulations.
Now we
Mr.
can
Ringel.
clap.
Okay, now the fun time. New business. Presentation of the fiscal year 2020 Minnesota budget.
Okay, 22 minutes.
That's 17 more than I gave you.
First of all, as we're getting started into the discussion, thank you for making the decision to help us continue to get better. We know we've got some work to do, and we know the things that we have to do. So when we're looking at this from a budget standpoint, I want to make clear to folks that we've got some processes and some things that we're going to have to correct and do there, but from a financial standpoint, we're in good shape. Okay, we're been assured, and we're very confident as to where we sit in that way. So as we're looking at these numbers, again, I think that the introduction to this is intended to present our, in financial terms, our plan. And I think we talked a little bit last year, we have to continue down this road of looking at this, of saying, we're going to use this document as a planning document going forward, and making sure that we're doing that to provide our services to the citizens of Elma beginning July 1st of 2019. It's the desire of the staff to provide a high level of service that embraces progress and development of this community. And we've seen development. We've seen some of these things starting to happen. So we've had to make some adjustments on how we're operating and what we're doing to make sure we keep pushing that way. The process of developing the budget ensures that each department has a legitimate voice in the development of this plan. I think these folks will tell you sitting there. For some of us, a little overwhelming because we maybe haven't had that before. And suddenly here we are sitting here helping to make decisions on how we're going to run our departments, our individual departments, and how it fits into the organization. Our intention is to present a budget that promotes accountability, increases engagement, and assists us on the path to setting them up for success in the very near future. This piece isn't meant for 10 years down the road. This piece is meant for now, that we start to get there. These are the meetings that we'd all went over and talking about that are upcoming. And in there you have basically which functions we'll be looking at. On the 23rd, tonight's the presentation to start this all off. On the 23rd, we're talking about the legislative, chief executive, and the finances and tax sections. The 30th would then be general government and public safety. May 7th gets us to community and economic development, recreation, and culture. May 14th, and David just getting appointed, 2.5 minutes ago. I put him at May 14th, so there's a little more time for us to work on some things that we have. Although I will tell you, as most of you know, I think Alan had really been running a lot of our capital improvement plan for taking on a burden of all of us. And so today, as I'm looking through things, I went, oh my God, David, come on. And we were able to get through the CIP plan, but that's based on his knowledge and where we're at. So that was really good to get through there, and we'll get to that in a minute. But, and also at that May 14th meeting, we've got to adopt a resolution for the millage rates. And then the 21st would be public works, and I have an if needed in there. If we get through a lot of that the week before, we might be in decent shape. And then by the 28th of May, that is when we'd be looking to make the formal adoption. But here's where we are. If you go back to January, when we had our goal setting session, our talk over at the library, and I think this encompasses a lot of the things that we've been talking about today. And I know Kathy's sitting here, we're talking about legacy coming in to help do the assessing and do some things here, because we got to look at ourselves. We have to get this organization, in my opinion, to a point that we are moving forward and jumping off. We've talked all about moving forward. We've talked over the last year and a half. We talk in our staff meetings now. We do things, but we've really hit that rubber meets the road portion now. There are some decisions that you folks have made that you're allowing us to get better. You're allowing us to fix some things that are going on in the organization. You're allowing us to take things that we just haven't looked at for years and years and years and say, no, if we need somebody to come in and help us and assist us to get there. Kathy lost some staff member, of which we were trying to go through doing assessing and getting this done. It was never going to happen with just her. And so to say that, no, it's a commitment on your part to allow us to look at this differently so that we can come in, get that start that we need so that we are a community now on an even par with others instead of always trying to catch up. So the hard part with that is, though, it ties into where we got into the personnel policy manual and talking about accountability. The rubber meets the road now, that you have to start being accountable for your job. Here's the expectations for you. So our expectations are for you to do this, and you know what the consequences will be if not. So it goes right back to, and I won't give you a presentation that comes from me without talking about this. It goes right back to our core values of Triple: the teamwork, respect, integrity, pride, learning, and excellence. So you're going to see this all the time. The goals that we had discussed that night, kind of putting them now into where we're going, especially from the budget standpoint, is that we will identify, develop, and implement work processes that define expectations for staff and hold them accountable for their performance. And what we are talking about are these workflow processes, our checks and balances, our policy and procedure manuals that actually tell our employees, this is what your job is, this is what you're supposed to do, and we're going to hold you accountable to that. We'll work on developing leaders of the organization for the present and for the future. We had a leadership conference March 1st where all of the administrators got together and we did some leadership training. It's time to take that leadership training on not only from this level, but to get it into the different levels of the organization so we're preparing the future leaders of our organization also. We're going to better plan for training. We have to train. Many of our employees have not received substantial training in their jobs and what they're supposed to do every day. And so I've asked everybody to make a commitment in their budgets this year. We've got to figure out ways. We talked about it last week when we went down to that financial stability class, that we need to find those things. And our department heads and our supervisors need to be finding those things that are needed in their department. And through the budget process and through things, we need to make a commitment to actually training our folks so that everybody knows where we're at. We'll begin, although this is a continuation, to really educate the community on the importance and necessity of change. Times have changed. We've talked about it at the Planning Commission level. We've talked about a lot of the different development things that we've gone through. I dropped a bomb tonight that we're talking about we need to start talking about shared services. There's just a thing. In order for people to survive and communities to survive in today's world, we've got to always be changing and looking at our processes and how we do things. We'll explore creative ways and better ways to utilize our finance and resources. As we're bringing someone in to help us get those processes and things in place, that will enable us to start to look at our numbers and trust our things better that say, okay, this is what we can do. How can we do this different in order to make us better, in order to help this community and get back to it? And we're committed to providing a real analysis of our internal service methods, those priorities and those costs. I think we've been able to identify over the last year, year and a half, a lot of the friction that's been caused in the city over the last years stemmed from really, I'm not going to call it ignorance, but it was, people were left out of parts of the process. And then we were talking about internal service fees and my budget and where does my money go, and it's well, yeah, you don't really, you know, this department doesn't spend general fund money, but I'm feeling like it's coming out of my pocket because it comes out of my budget, and it's in an internal service fee. So we've already put some things in place during this budget process to start to look at those internal service fees differently. And I think that this goes beyond just the budget. I think you'll see one of the areas that we've seen as we went through these numbers is it gives us a more realistic approach to what certain things cost for us to do. Okay? Hopefully, the byproduct of that also is it's created the dialogue and the discussion that we now have to have with each other. It's not like, I don't know why I have that charge, because I don't understand the formula, I don't understand where it came from. So we've had some of those open discussions, and we've taken those, but it's not as simple as just doing it in a blanket. We are taking step by step by step to get us there. Most of you have seen this, but I think it's important that we look at it again. Governmental accounting is different than other forms of accounting, and you need to get a better idea of the overview of how this whole thing kind of works. We have two fund types. We have our governmental funds and our enterprise funds. And then we have the functions that those all kind of plug into. You're talking about the legislative, the chief executive, the financial and tax administration, general government, public safety, public works, community and economic development, recreation and culture, and our debt service. Right there, people should get a really good idea that this is not simple. There is a lot that goes on in trying to get these things and make sure that they're running and that they work properly, and a lot of checks and balances for us. So what I gave you just as a little idea of, here's the functions where they kind of line up, so that you can see we have all of those functions, but in the legislative, that's you folks, that's the city commission. Chief executive is my office, the finance and tax, the clerks, assessor, and treasurer. Then general government things are the things like election, municipal building and grounds, the State Street Plaza that we own. Public safety, police, fire, the inspection services is actually under that from there. Community and economic development involves zoning, the economic development that we do. Recreation and culture is the parks and the library. And then you look at this huge thing. David, you did say yes. Because you look at this huge piece, public works, downtown maintenance, sidewalks, street opening permits, roads, streets and bridges, street lighting, cemetery, airport, wastewater, water utility, refuse collection, transit. Now, we pull some of those out because they're enterprise and they run on their own, but technically they all fall in there, and that's why that's the last one in May 14th, to make sure that we get all of those. You've got some numbers here today to work with. And then the debt, our principal, and what we're doing with the interest from that. So, a little bit idea of where those come. We have expenditure categories, and that's our personnel. These are the categories that we spend in: materials and supplies, services and charges, our capital outlay, and then the debt that we have. Our revenue sources that we bring in are from our taxes, special assessments that we have, license and permits, grants, the charges that we have for services, fines and forfeits in different departments, the investment income and rents, and then there's always something else that comes up out of there that you're not sure, whether we have an agreement with somebody else, the townships, anybody else. So when you look at how we're structured, the dollars that we really have to do something with as this organization is the general fund. Those are the dollars that we have to make work and things. A lot of the other that we'll talk about, when we talk about some of the other services, you're going to see where the money comes from. This is the general fund money that we deal with. But look at all of the things that are funded and are competing for the general fund dollar. Okay? Some are small, some are large. But a lot of our departments and a lot of our functions that end up in here, I don't think when you're looking at that general fund number, there's that knowledge that says, wow, that's a lot to put into one category and fund. So we'll get into these a little bit deeper here in a minute. The restricted funds that also we work with, I also have a good idea, that's an awful lot of funds, a lot of things that we're going through to track. But you're looking at the restricted funds, and what I gave you back down there below that in the parentheses is basically something that tells you where does the money come from. Okay, where is the revenue coming from that we use. And so if you go across, we've got some endowment funds for the library, for the cemetery. Major street projects are State of Michigan Act 51 funded, okay? Our local streets are Act 51 funded. We have a street improvement millage, which is the voted millage that we have here in the city. Some of these are, I'm assuming, been on our books for a while that are still sitting out there. Tax increment finance authority is still to balance some of the stuff from Lobdell when they were here. Housing rehabilitation, which is MISTA and loan repayments. The building authority debt service, which is the bonds that were for Target Terrace that are still there. The State Street Plaza, I don't even know if we have any grants really out there anymore for the rents that we do, and so we have to look at the budget of trying to get those rents to be equal, which you guys have recently made some changes of how we're doing some things there, of having them help pay for utilities and things, so that we got some of that coming in better. Transit services, federal, state grants, millage and fees, and it's probably a good time to even bring it up. Because, you know, there's this thought process that we're gonna take transit away from Pine River Township because we're operating at a loss. The loss was a planned loss if you look at what we had done and the money we had brought in when we took over patient equivalent. There was over $100,000 that was brought to the city at that point to do this. Now, being the former transit director, I will tell you, I've said, and I've made this statement, I set the hook. And we said that to everybody. We were gonna go out and see what the need was, but we also told them there will be a time when you're going to have to be an active participant in this and help pay in. So that's kind of the area that we've raised. So there is this, and there's a healthy fund balance in there that we had decided to use to make sure that we could set that hook to make sure that we were doing that. So I thought it was a good time to do that. We talk about water and wastewater. We're looking at user fees, and we're going to bring those back to you at a point in time as we establish those going forward. Our refuse disposal that we had a discussion about tonight, which is one we just had a discussion today that we're going to have to look really hard at because those costs are increasing. The DDA, which is captured property tax from those people that are down there in the DDA. The library has general fund fines, they get property tax that they have that come in, plus our general fund contribution to them. And then the Alma Housing Commission, which really works from HUD, and then the user fees that they bring. So these are funds that we manage, funds that go through the city, funds that we utilize, but we have monies coming in from different sources. So if you look at how is this revenue coming in to the city by source, I know it's probably a little difficult for you to read because of the numbers, but if you have the thing there, it's going to tell you where different things are coming in. The large blue portion is the taxes. That's about 3.171 million that we'll get from there. Brady and I have trouble reading I gotta get to my thing because I can't actually see that well up there. But it gives you your breakdown of just how much is available in grants, special assessments that we have, how much we're bringing in license permits, and what's the percentage in that big pie chart that says this is the citywide revenue. This is where money is coming from. Okay, that comes in here. This is the expense by function. This breaks you down as to those functions and those departments as to where our money is going out. Okay, the large green one. I'm gonna assume that we have that comes through there. But you look, you can get a good idea of how much. And I don't want to go through each and every one. You have this document right here to take a look at and to see. But it breaks you down by the amount, where it's at, where the focus needs to be. The reality is these functions are the ones, and these departments are the ones competing for those general fund dollars that we have. And how do we allocate those in a way? These are the categories that we're spending money on. Obviously, the very big blue one takes up most in that thing is our personnel, which I think ties back to, if personnel has that large a piece of that pie chart, we need to treat our personnel like a resource that it is. Okay? We're spending the money on them, we should be training them, we should be making sure that they have the ability and they have the things to do their jobs well, because it's our largest investment. Materials and supplies, enterprise depreciations, different things like that, and our services charges that come through. So keep in mind as we go through this too, and I think the point of discussion necessarily, this is an overview, and I know that we have these 5 Tuesdays set up to sit down and talk. And I know that because what I'm going to give you a week in advance the printout of that budget. Okay, so if we're meeting to talk of, and I'll just pick, with public safety, if it's gonna be, you know you're gonna talk police, fire, inspection services that night, that week prior, I'm gonna give you the printout, so you can look at the line items, you can see exactly what it is, okay? There was discussion last year, you know, we wanna get that deep into the woods, yeah, we do. We want to get that deep into the woods to let you see exactly how that money's being spent through there, okay? So this is taking it all and putting it together. What we're gonna do on those Tuesday nights is actually take each piece of that and have you take a look at those. The street funds that we get, we're looking at, there are no major streets planned for this year, right? That doesn't mean we're not bringing money in major streets. That money still comes in through Act 51 money, but that's how we're able to do those really large projects. And we had a very large major street project last year on Lincoln. Okay, that was part of the major streets from there. Local streets, we're budgeting about $417,000, and we're looking at Francisco, the Washington sanitary portion. We have an alleyway in Sherrar that we've talked a little bit about. I think in the past that we know we're gonna have to do some work there. And then a crack and seal coat program for the roads across the city. Right.
Where's the alley at?
On Sherrar,
Where's
by
Sherrar?
contact,
North of Dealing Street.
north of Dealey.
Oh,
Sherrar.
I thought that, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's a bigger issue that we've been dealing with, and this is gonna be the resolution, so to speak, of that issue, of really formalizing that piece.
I sit with that.
Yeah. Over there. And then that voted street millage is budgeted $470,000 coming out of there. These don't mean these are the totals for those projects, just so you know. That's what's coming out of these different areas on there. Because that will be moving towards the Iowa Street project, which is a big one. And I think it's worth mentioning maybe here as we budget streets, and we'll discuss this much deeper when we have the time with David at that point. But I think, folks, I know we've set some policies in the past of how we're gonna do roads and what we're gonna do with infrastructure and what we're gonna do with sidewalks and different things and curbs. We may have to start looking at things, and I think Charles Road, Reggie brought it up in the last meeting, is a really good example. Because we've been saying if we're gonna open a road, we're gonna do something, we're gonna fix everything underneath. We have some roadways, the roadway surface itself, that are just that bad, yet the infrastructure doesn't reach the same level. And whenever you ask the question, why are we doing certain roads, and it's putting that together and saying, some of the roadways probably need, and we're gonna have to come to you and maybe think, we may have to rethink that a little bit. And look at these more on a case-by-case basis that says, we're gonna use the ratings, we're gonna do all these things, but sometimes, like Five Corners last year, when we had real problems underneath the road that had to be fixed. You look at what's going on Charles, that road's getting worse and worse and worse, yet the infrastructure under there, we would term what, built in the 60s, and that's young. That's younger infrastructure under there. Unfortunately, the 60s is very, very young. It was built in the 60s as far as the infrastructure. Probably the only way we're going to be able to tie in as we start to look, and I've asked David, one of the things we're going to look at is saying we really need to start setting a hard plan on how we're going to start to deal with infrastructure. And it's a costly thing. We're trying to put some of these things together. And I think it's going to force us to look at things a little bit differently as we move on. The capital improvement, I just gave you the graph of, thank you so much, David, for this today. We had this spread out, looking at some things, but as anything, we have some changes. I think things need to be looked differently. And so we're going to look at this a little bit differently, but this gives you an idea of the capital programs and the capital projects that we have budgeted for and that we will be looking at going into this next budget year. And you're looking at about a grand total of 2.9, close to $3 million in capital projects, of which, you know, that touches a bunch of different areas. And I tried to give you also on there not only the project and the cost of the project, but where we're going to fund that project, where you can see it's coming through, whether it's all general fund, whether it's been split between the local streets. A lot of our roadway projects are split between water, wastewater, streets, because then it spreads it up because we are doing that other work all through there. So I think that I look forward to the more detailed discussions that we need to have as we look into the budget year. This is just, like I said, an overview. We'll give you some ideas that we're looking at. We talk about general fund because, again, that's truly the money that we can make some decisions with, okay? And we are right now projecting our revenues and expenditures would balance at about $4.1 million this year. Last year we were 3.9-ish, right there in that area, so a little increase there. One of the big things as we talked about internal service fees and how we're trying to look at things differently is we are gonna charge the public works as a direct, their wages and benefits are gonna be charged directly as wages and benefits, as opposed to this fee structure that we had combined in there. What I've heard from a lot of people, what we've talked about with a lot of folks is really, and I think the question I had from one person in particular was, how big are you? I'm like, what do you mean, how big are we? About 10,000 people. How big's your staff? You have no need to spread your public works out as an internal service fee all throughout the area, because we're probably spending as much time administering that we could save by charging the salaries and the benefits directly as wages. The BSNA system allows the timesheets to use exclusively as, because we can put them right into the accounts that they go, so they'll be charged directly. We still have to have a mechanism though, in Public Works and the other places, to have some things for equipment rental. And we'll continue to use the state of Michigan fees, which are really, they're there for us to use. It's hard to imagine that it costs the same thing though to use it here as it would in Southeast Michigan, but that's you gotta have some criteria, that's fine. So we'll continue to use that. The IT services now will be in a full year of contract. Remember last year we had to do some jumbling around because when we made the change in IT and Treasury, we had a lot of things that we kind of moved back and forth to get through the year. But realistically, as you look at the cost that we will be saving, most likely is around $150,000 that we can do over the time of how we look at IT services differently through this contract. And I know staff is probably going to shoot daggers at me because it's a process we're still going through with IT, right? But and I need to start bringing these to you. That's my apology. I should bring these to you also because is the fact that if you get a chance, and and that's my fault. I should bring this to you every month, is to show you we do use them. We call them. It's a 4-page report of how much stuff we have going with them. And I know it's different than not having Carl sitting right there or even Clover, and it's nice to have that person, but we do use them a lot. So I think this will continue to benefit us as we go forward. And just a reminder, last year that we came up with fund balance policy because that was a big talk about what are we doing, how do we manage it. It was a question that was going around, where's the fund balance, what does that number truly mean as to where we're at. So I gave you a little shot of what the policy, and it's not the entire policy because it had some more definitions, but really we're talking about the general fund, that we believe sound financial management principles require sufficient general fund balance to be retained by the city to give us a stable financial base, to maintain our general fund balance, to provide financial reserves for unanticipated expenditures and other things that come up, provide cash flow liquidity for the general operations of the city, and to fund those planned capital improvements that we may have. We decided that a minimum level of unrestricted fund balance needed to be established by this commission. Okay? And the minimum unrestricted fund balance at the end of each fiscal year should be sufficient to cover 6 months of future budgeting and operating. That's what we decided last year. That this fund balance would always, the minimum we would have to have in our fund balance was at least 6 months worth of our operating budget for that year. But we also said it shouldn't exceed 1 full year. Because then we should be doing stuff with it if it gets that high. We should be doing things with it. So, to give you the idea, our goal is to limit expenditures to anticipated revenue, thereby maintaining a balance in this. But, should it become or fall below that minimum, we also have to, if you remember, it can't be a reoccurring thing, and we have to put a plan in place that puts it back in. Okay? So, on that note, at least, to look at it, what we're really talking about here is currently, and that would really be end of 2018, that our fund balance sits at $3.4 million in general fund. We're anticipating a $4.1 million budget for the upcoming year, which would mean our fund balance obviously then can't exceed $4.1 million, but we should never let it drop below $2.050 million. But that gap does not mean that we need to spend down to $2. No, we still need to maintain it. It is there for the purposes that we talked about. It's only to be used in very serious times. We put a cap on it so that it couldn't grow to a certain point without being utilized, but it gave us some flexibility. But don't anybody sit here and think, oh, doing the math, that we have money to spend. It still needs to be retained.
Thank you, Matt.
So, Cynthia's here, we're more than willing to take questions, but I think truly the idea that I would like to see us really go after is utilizing those 5 sessions, and I will do this, I will make you this, well, not a promise, I'm gonna make you a promise. I will tell you in the best of my ability, what we will do is to limit those to no more than an hour and a half, 90 minutes, okay? Because anything beyond that, most likely, we're all fading away anyway. So it's not the most exciting. But for you folks and for the department heads to be actively involved in those discussions, to be there on their nights, and to definitely be sure that they're there ready to ask questions, because these are their budgets. Is where we came up with that.
Those sessions are all open to the public as
Those
well,
are, yes,
correct?
they will be posted. Yes, those will all be open to the public from there. It's a good opportunity, I think, to really get a chance to see where are we at and what are your plans for your department, and how does it mix with your whole organization. Okay. Thank you.
Back to the agenda, yes. That was a presentation, I guess we entertain a motion to receive it.
So moved.
Motion support, any comments or questions? Questions for Matt? No? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? Motion's carried. Appropriations, shall we pay the bills? Motion support, are there any comments or questions on the payments page? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? We paid the bills. Okay, commissioner comments. Audra, would you like to start?
Sure, I saw the new Alma Transportation bus today go by me a couple times. It looks great in the city colors, so.
Larry?
I just want to remind people with the warmer weather, I'm seeing a lot more people out walking. And twice today, I had to stop at crosswalks for people who were looking at their phones as they walked into the crosswalk without ever looking up to see that there was a big red school or a big yellow school bus very close to them. I mean, they intended to stop, so it wasn't a shock that they just walked right out. Talk to your kids and to yourselves, and put those phones down when you cross.
Is there a bus finder app?
Well, the bus would do an awful lot more damage than a car going across.
Mr. Attorney?
Just gotta ask, these lovely children over here who have been phenomenal, I don't know who's raising these kids, but I don't know how you pull that off.
The little one did cry when Matt started his presentation. I almost did too.
Good job, Jim.
I don't think they asked to hear the word.
Well, that's why they came, a bunch of us.
Right.
They were spellbound, man.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
I'd just like to put a real shout out and thanks to staff over the last 2 weeks. Anytime we make some decisions, and I say we, but you made a decision throughout this, when we did the legacy assessing, it creates questions. It creates questions on why we're doing things. I think that we handled it very, very well. Everyone who took a phone call, an explanation as to what this is for. It truly is, and I keep pounding this point, but it is about trying to take us as a community to the next level, as an organization, then to our community. And yes, there's a cost to doing business, folks. There is a cost for us to get to a certain point. What I don't believe is the question that we have of, well, what is the staff doing? Trust me. Nice word. But staff works hard here. Staff works very hard here. And as we're looking at making some of these changes, I'm very excited because what you're allowing us to do is get us to a point that then you talk about accountability, and we are talking a lot about that, but it's a little nervous for me as the head of the organization because I understand now we're going to be at a point soon where that accountability falls even more towards me that says, you're giving us the tools to get to where we need to be to jump off. And so I think we're ready. And I think that you're continued as a commission and as a community, I would like to see you continue to support the things that we're trying to do. We aren't making decisions in a vacuum. they're talked about, they're brought to you as the commissioners, we're looking at things, always with the goal to make sure that we're moving this community forward and making it better. You guys did a really good job last week of handling what we weren't really expecting. And so I appreciate that on everybody's part. Good job.
Thank you.
Okay, hard to follow that. A couple comments that, I know I commend as far as the legacy project and the reevaluation of all the properties, which is a huge undertaking. And I know we started to hear rumblings about this, and Kathy brought this to us a couple of years ago, I think, where we first started talking about it, and, you know, rumblings down in Lansing about the push to change things as far as assessing goes. And the state in general is undergoing a lot of change, and there's a lot of questions being asked at the state level, and a lot of pressure being put on, I think particularly townships right now, but certainly cities as well, about having all these records in order and doing things in a certain proper way. That across the state, it's a real big problem. And, you know, again, we talked about it before, but kudos to Kathy for, you know, bringing this to us ahead of time. I am very confident that if we were to get in line for this type of service now, which we would be getting in line for in light of what's going on around the state, it'd be several years down the road and tens of thousands of dollars more than what we're currently paying for this reevaluation. So, you know, kudos to Kathy and your staff for doing that. You know, it puts us ahead of the game. In this case, we're not just, you know, keeping up with things. We're going to be ahead of everybody else in a number of ways because of this project. Yes, it is a lot of money, but in the long run, it's going to save us money. And I would say the same thing. You know, the teams we've got around the city, a lot of dedicated people. Dave is just our newest promotion here, but all across the board. I join Matt in saying that I'm very proud of everyone that works for the city. I know there's a lot of dedicated people come to work every day and really do their best for the citizens, so we do appreciate that. So, with that, I'd like to open it to the public comments, so if you'd like to address the commission, you please come to the podium, state your name and address, and I believe we have a 5-minute limit or so. So who would like to be first? All right.
My name is Lori Wilson, I live at 517 Michigan Avenue, St. Louis. About a week ago, I seen some people out to Walmart, because I was out there, and they were trying to find a vehicle that somebody called in that had a fire or something to it. And I came in to the parking lot, and people were trying to scramble to figure out where this vehicle was, and they finally found the vehicle. And I want to commend the Elmo Fire Department for doing their job, because the situation was this van, I don't know if it had a heater or what, and everybody was saying different things about this person having a stove in the van or something, and I just had to be at the right place at the right time. And I want to thank Elmo Fire Department and their staff for doing their job, trying to figure out what was going on. And, you know, safety is a lot to think about, because if it's not Elma, St. Louis, Breckenridge, Ithaca, or the city of Elma or whatever, all these people need to be commended for a job that they do every day and every night. You know, as a child, I see all these firefighters do a job trying to save people, trying to save somebody. You know, these people go out and do a fantastic job. And if they weren't here, if something happened, what are you gonna do? You know, because they work hard. You guys work hard. I'm a municipal firefighter. My uncle's been gone almost 7 years in November. He was a fantastic firefighter for St. Louis and around areas. And if my uncle can hear me, and I know he can, he did a fantastic job helping every firefighter for this, the Opera House down here in 2010.